Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Organizing to Victory podcast, where we're talking garage politics. My name is Lee Perry, and on today's episode, we have Jorge Figueroa, who's running for Florida State House District 47 in an area that encompasses Osceola County and some of Orange, where in 2024, we saw a huge swing of our Hispanic population in Osceola towards Republicans, and Jorge is hoping to bring his faith and his message to the doors of all of the voters in this area to hopefully win them back and rebuild trust. Here's my conversation with Jorge. All right, everyone, we have a special guest in the house today, Jorge Figueroa, who's running for Florida House District 47. Welcome to my home.
Thank you for having me, Leah. I've been looking forward to this, and I'm glad that we finally got to get together.
Well, I love that on your literature, it has true Democrat. Like you have to really specify that, because I wonder how people in your community feel about maybe hearing that someone's a Democrat or feeling betrayed by either a Republican or a Democrat. Like, what inspired you to put true Democrat on your literature?
Well, I think more than anything because, as a Christian, sometimes people questions, your political platform. Like if people from the right think that Democrats cannot be Christians or that the Democrats are all of the devil, I have heard these things. Mm-hmm. And, but when you say you're a Christian and you have some values that are a little bit, more conservative, people question if you're really a Democrat, if you're really there about the issues or whatnot. So I've been a Democrat all my life. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean, and I'm very honest, that doesn't mean that I vote Democrat all throughout, because I look at the people, at the person, and their qualities and qualifications for the position at hand. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, in the past, I have felt sometimes that people from the other party were a little bit more qualified.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I want to learn about some of the things that you stand for, but first I want to learn about where you were born and how you became politically aware.
Well, I was born in Puerto Rico, and from an early age, if you know politics in Puerto Rico, they are like a festival. They are, it's a holiday. The Elections Day is a holiday, but the process to get there, everything that is done, the grassroots efforts to mobilize the people and get them excited to go out and vote. In the past, I think they still do them. They did these caravanas, which is these caravans of, thousands of people, with their party flags and cards. And I remember when I was about 11 or 12, one of my friends, I grew up in the projects of Puerto Rico. I don't come from, a wealthy family. We struggle, but, one of my friends' dad, he had a funeral cart, and he will take us to those caravans in that funeral cart,
Ready
so
to
that
party.
Yeah, so it was, to us it was just fun because you can go stand up on top of the car, and you can get your head out of the windows, and there's tons of people all over the place. So from there, I think and seeing all my family going out on boat, that always stuck in my mind. Mm-hmm. And then when I moved to Wisconsin, I was very involved because I founded a chapter of a fraternity, which is Community Service First / Social. And we were very involved in the community. And at the age of 21, the commissioner of police and fire at the time is a Mexican man. He asked me to go to run for alderman. I'm in college. I just founded a fraternity. I wasn't ready for that yet. But yeah, it's been embedded ever since Puerto Rico.
What brought you into the stateside,
Well, as I mentioned, I started working when I was 12. I grew up in the projects in Puerto Rico, and I seen a lot of things. And I saw my family struggle. My dad has a third grade education. My mom was going to be an accountant, and she got pregnant with my younger sister. So, I see my dad spending his last $2 bill with a lot of colors that he's been saving for a long time and to get us milk. And during Christmas, I see my mom cry because she couldn't afford toys for us. And I realized that, I'm the oldest of three. So I realized that I had to help a little bit, however I could. And I took on a paper route. When I was 16, then I went to work at a grocery store as a bagger, like Bad Bunny did. But then when I was 16, there was a huge, the celebration of the 500-year anniversary of the discovery of Puerto Rico. So they did a mock of the trip, the trajectory that Christopher Columbus took with the replicas of the boats, etc. And they were hiring students to work. One of the requirements was to speak English. And, I was a 4.0 student, but my English was from school. So when they told me that my English wasn't good enough, it really broke my heart because I was looking forward to, getting out of my environment and experience new things, new people. But God is good because 2 weeks later, my aunt, who had just moved to Wisconsin, called my mother, and they were talking about how good the education was in Wisconsin. And I was saving to buy a car. And I told my mom, you know what, I want to go learn English at least for a year and come back and graduate with my people. I was entering the 11th grade. And 3 weeks later, a month later, I was in Wisconsin.
What brought you to Florida?
I got tired of the cold weather.
Same story.
No, really. To be honest, again, I'm a big believer, and I was going through some tough times. I completed all my education, my high school, my bachelor's in finance. I got an MBA from the University of Phoenix, and 10 years of experience in mortgage. I had 5 years of experience in higher education, and I couldn't find a job. Even with all the connections that I had, my last 6 months, I was working third shift at a factory. And, I was already planning on moving to Florida, but I was getting out of a bad relationship. And in church, I got a message from a prophet and a pastor friend of mine, and it was the same message from two people, somebody who didn't know me and a friend of mine. And I knew that I had to come to Florida, and I started looking for a job. Had an interview via Skype, which I was told it was the first time that this higher education institution did a Skype interview, and I got the job. And 3 weeks later, I was here.
Nice.
Two pieces of luggage, $500 in my pockets, and God has been good to me.
That's incredible. Well, you obviously could be just like everyone else, trying to make ends meet, do a 9 to 5, take care of your family. Jumping into politics is especially in Florida, it is a journey, and it is like an uphill battle. Someone just made a reference in one of my other podcasts. It's like moving a mountain up another mountain. What inspired you to file to run, and why Florida? Why now?
Man, you know what? If I would have known how hard it was, I would have thought a longer time.
We'll cut that part out.
Yes.
No,
but
it's
really,
hard.
I realized when I started getting involved and going to these meetings with the parties, etc., and people started thanking me for running, I didn't realize why. But now I do. This is not for everybody. But, I've only been a public servant. I volunteer a lot. And with everything that's going on in our nation and around the world and in our communities, I just cannot be one of those individuals that get mad at the world all the time, but not do anything about it. And, I was approached in the last cycle to run for this position, and but I was not ready. You know, I had business, unfinished business with the chamber, and last year I prayed about it. I was thinking about running for a commission chair in Osceola, but a friend of mine called me and said, "Man, you know, I already filed. Can we just, you know, not be the bias of everyone?" You know what? I haven't made up my mind yet, so don't worry about it. You know, I support you, and I just prayed about it. And 5 months later, I got a text that they probably wanted to talk. Some people wanted to talk to me about running for this chair, and I said, you know what? Thank you, God. You know, this is the confirmation that I need. So here I am.
That's incredible. So it wasn't necessarily that Florida in Tallahassee was so exciting that you wanted to rush your way up to the state legislature.
Oh my God. Listen, and I've been talking to people and they tell me, you know, like, look, it's so hard, you know, and I thought about that the first time. It was like, you know, Tallahassee, I mean, it's 30 to 90, you know, what kind of impact can I really have? You know, but at the same time, I've been working with both sides with the Puerto Rican Chamber. So I know that I can find common ground. And, you know, I do a lot of bipartisan advocacy for immigration in Washington, D.C. for the last 5 years. So, you know, why not try? You know, I had conversations with people from the other side, and, you know, people will be surprised how much things we have in common. When we really get down to the bottom of it, we all want the same things. We want prosperity, we want security, we want a plain level field. You know, we want to thrive, we want to provide for our families. It's just, how do we get there?
Yeah.
Those are, I think, the main differences.
Well, I think right now in Florida, we're also united in what we don't want.
That's right.
We don't want the state using our money to weaponize every state agency to racially profile us and our kids, to target us on the streets. We don't want our water to be polluted. We don't want cancer clusters and no affordable healthcare options. We don't want a hurricane to go through and have absolutely no FEMA or rapid response or resiliency planning. Yes. The state right now, I believe that Project 2025 nationally was tested in Florida first. I think Florida has been the front lines and the playground of all of those think tanks that wanted to develop some of the most harmful policies that disenfranchise some of the most vulnerable communities here in Florida first.
Definitely. And we are continuing to be the guinea pig, I think, of the Republican Party. Let's be honest, you know, there's a lot of policies that are taking place here that mirror or go even further than what the federal government is doing. Yeah. And, you know, when do we say it's enough? Yeah. When do the Floridian people will realize that we have been under, you know, this party for a very long time, and even though the state is great in some areas, there's some other areas where we fall below the national average. You know, for example, teacher pays. You know, the expenditure per student is one of the lowest. I
think it's the lowest nation. Now. I think this year it became the lowest.
The lowest, correct. I think it's like a little bit over $9,000 in Osceola and Orange County. You know, so I mean, we do great. We have great universities. I think we're number one or number two nationally in higher education. But what about pre-K to 12? You know, we are really struggling there. I mean, we got now 7 schools closing in Orange County because of the low enrollment. You know, so there are some areas that we can do better. We are one of the states with the biggest disparity when it comes to wages. You know, the 1% over here controls more, you know, than the 99%.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Mar-a-Lago is just a few hours from here, and they don't feel what people in your district probably feel, which is, having to see your school that you grew up in is a part of your community close because our tax dollars are subsidizing through the voucher program private schools. Mm-hmm. They're gutting SNAP, they're gutting free lunch and breakfast, they're gutting all these programs and then garnishing wages of teachers so that we're losing talent. And even going above and beyond, if you have a teacher that calls a child by their preferred nickname or what have you, they are starting to attack teachers and make them the front lines of culture wars.
Yes.
No,
100%, and that's, it hurts because education to me is very important, as like I mentioned, I moved to the United States to follow, a better education. I mean, I fell in love with everything, that I learned and the way the system, at least at that time in Wisconsin, was working. And I don't see that in Florida. But, it's incredible to me, that being such a great economic state, we're lacking on the fundamentals. Mm-hmm. We are known as the retiree state, and are we really providing for our elderly? The elderly and the young are our most vulnerable people, and I think we're failing those groups.
Yeah, I mean, not having like public transportation, for example, and having to rely on a car innately disenfranchises children and seniors, because if a senior is aging past the point of being able to drive, they're just isolated. I traveled to Berlin in December, and the first thing that I noticed was how independent seniors were because of the transit.
Yes.
So many people that looked like they were past the point of being able to drive, not only dressed impeccably well, but they were like laughing with friends, linking arms, like reading on the train and laughing. And I just felt like the basics of having access to rapid transportation across the country allows seniors to have a new independence, a new way of addressing their senior years that we immediately lack.
Yes.
Like, yes, the weather is warm here, so you don't have your arthritis hurting as much. That's a bonus. But if you can't even leave your house to enjoy the weather because it's a 30-minute drive to get anywhere, and we don't have transportation options to make sure that senior can safely arrive somewhere to get their groceries with ease, I mean, you're isolated.
No, and when I moved here, that was one of the first things I noticed. Is a car here is not a luxury; it's a necessity, because I mean, just everything is about 20 to 25 minutes apart, to get here. So it is important, and we see the most vulnerable again, getting the shortest part of the stick.
Yeah.
And that hurt us in other areas. You have now, we had a case now where a kid was run over in a scooter. So people are looking for these other options, these cheaper options for not having a car to have transportation, and that creates safety issues. Mm-hmm. And the state of Florida ranks in the top 3 for pedestrian deaths.
Yep.
So it brings, there's more than just the transportation is safety, is mobility, is the inability for seniors to get the health care, is the inability of families to provide for their family. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, those are some of the issues that really need to be addressed in Tallahassee, instead of focusing on how do we give more breaks to multi-nation corporations that don't bring anything to the state.
So I know this is a little bit of a detour, but I'll get back to asking you about your top policies. But when I reflect on the fact that Republicans have had ownership over the state and control for 20, 30 years now, but they keep getting voted into office by more Republicans. I'm so curious to dissect why so many Republicans continue to vote for things as the cost of living is exploding, as we have like the highest rate of foreclosures in the entire country. Property insurance companies are just like dropping people. And I just reflect, and something stands out, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We have a very high Hispanic population in Florida. My father, born and raised in Puerto Rico, refused to teach me Spanish because he didn't want me to get bullied. And he said a lot of like racist things about Hispanic people, being a Hispanic person. And, his father was very dark skinned and his mother was very light skinned. And growing up, even on my mother's side, African and Native American, the racism and colorism that I was exposed to from my own family and cousins was really intense. And when I reflect on some of the Republican values, right, especially when they co-opt Christianity and patriotism into their narrative of like this separation of people who are unjust versus people who deserve things, it almost feels like there's more of a culture in the Republican Party side to want to see people punished or withheld resources than wanting to expect more from their own politicians. Yes. And I think that's the root as to why Republicans continue to vote for more Republicans, even when they're losing access to things. And that also includes the Hispanic population. Like, yes. There was a survey that just came out this year, which I hope it's changed, and I hope you're seeing something different in your district, that the MAGA base is really moving away from Trump, except for the Hispanics in Florida. And that is an interesting statistic to me, because even though it wasn't publicized on TV as much, we have the highest concentration of raids for immigrants and racial profiling here, because unlike, Michigan and Chicago and California, it's not this big show of having ICE agents just come into communities. It's every single state agency, whether it's Florida Fish and Wildlife, whether it's the Highway Patrol, they're all being used to move and grab and remove people out of communities, which leaves these like emotional holes in your neighborhood. Are Hispanic people that you're talking to at the doors, are they excited to see that their neighbors are being removed? Because I've even heard voters say, well, I did it the right way, they should just do it like me. Or is their empathy being, tested right now?
And I tell you, I've seen both sides, mm-hmm. And it's really sad, because when I see the last comment that you just mentioned, I have a friend that I used to work with that he said exactly that. I did it the right way. Not everybody has the same resources, especially in Latin American countries. If your family is well off and you can get a visa, that's great. But if you come from the bottom, it's near impossible to get a visa. So it's not the same. It's not about doing it the right way. It's about having the means to, mm-hmm. and having a process that works for everybody, mm-hmm. not just for those who have the means. Mm-hmm. I have, I'm going to call them friends who moved here from Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. Mm-hmm. They think that they're more American than the Washington in the $1 bill. And they didn't feel offended when this comedian called Puerto Rico an island of floating garbage. He was trying to make justifications, and to me that was just sad, because you have family there. That's where you were born, and if you don't stand up and give yourself some self-respect, what really do you believe in? What kind of character do you have? But I'm seeing, on the other side, a lot of of my friends who are Republicans, who are business owners, who are Hispanic, that are tired, especially those individuals who are vets. This is not what they went to fight for. This is not what they signed up for, and they're looking very focused on what the Democratic Party is going to do. And I get friends who call me like, man, I hope you guys do well, and I support you, but the Democrats got to do something about this. And then you see some things that are really mind-numbing. When as I'm doing calls and I speak to someone who is a Republican, and they tell me, oh man, I would love to support you, but man, I can't. These other guys will shoot me. I'm like, are you listening to what you're saying? There's got to be something fundamentally wrong when you are afraid of retaliation from your own party. And that's what we're seeing in the Republican Party. There's a lot of division because, we got a president who acts like a dictator. If you're not with me, you're against me, and I'm going to throw everything that I have against you. And that is the weapon that they have been using, is a division. I was very involved in college in the 90s with the EI. We do a protest just to bring a multicultural student affairs office into our campus, just to try to get African-American studies into our campus. We had to do demonstrations because there was no equity. All that diversity, equity, inclusion, all that is being dismantled. This is 4 years ago, Osceola County, for example, was, I think, 9th in the nation for small Hispanic businesses growth. And one of the initiatives that I had with the chamber was to try to get this small Hispanic business, minority business, with the minority certification to open the doors for government contracts. And, that all went to waste.
Yeah.
Because now that doesn't exist. And, we got an administration here in Florida and in Washington that if they suspect that anything is woke, as they put it, they will cut your funding.
Yeah.
How many people gets affected by that? It's just like what they did with in immigration with the TPS. Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, Haitians, all these people were just left in limbo just because they decided to put a stop to a law that was allowing individuals to legally become citizens. And now they are criminals in their eyes for no wrongdoing of their own.
Right. And they're doing that now with asylum seekers too. They want to force you, even green card holders, to go back to your country to apply. Well, if you just escaped from violence.
Exactly.
How can you be expected? And then if you don't, and if you overstay your time, then you're a criminal and you're not doing it the right way. And it's like, well, every right way is being gutted or changed and canceled. And so I do want to ask, because Osceola, all eyes on Osceola right now, because it was in 2020, 2018, 2020, the most it was like the concentration where everyone said there's enough swing, we can make it blue, we can keep it blue, we can build there. And then it went the reddest, the fastest out of the target counties in 2024. I think it was like a 15-point swing in the red. And everyone, even like some of the national podcasts that I listen to, because I'm a nerd and this is all I do, they were like, Osceola County, wow, we really messed up with something there. And I'm so terrified, because if that is true, that the Hispanic population is still going deeper into the MAGA camp, we're in trouble in Osceola. But it sounds like what you're saying is that people are exhausted and they want change. But you said something else, and my views are my own, I'm just throwing it at him to see what he says, but I do want to say something that's probably going to get me in trouble, not him. If people are waiting to see what the Democrats are going to do, that means we need real investment.
Yes.
That means that we need real resources. And frankly, we need real Democrats in that area that are going to want to take the time to build and not just rely on their name recognition. Osceola has a lot of like powerful families that have been in office or around office for a long time.
Yes.
And, you know, I have my own issues with the Arringtons because, you know, they haven't been with us on Split Oak Forest. But I remember having conversations asking about investing into, you know, building in Osceola. And I've heard, well, my last name is Arrington. I don't need to knock doors. Mm. And if you have generational establishment Democrats that are not in the streets with people and are not fighting with people, then what happens is our populations can be susceptible to a MAGA framework because they feel unheard and unseen by the Democrat establishments that have just been gerrymandered into their privilege of retaining office for long periods of time.
Yes.
So you don't need to comment on that, but that's my reflection of what's happening in that area.
Yeah, you know, but I am going to comment because that's, you know, that's where I live, you know, and that's the area that covers my district, you know, and to begin with, you know, our party needs to take a hard look in the mirror from the top to the bottom. You know, right now there isn't any clear leadership, and that doesn't help. You know, we don't have a direction except for to know that we need to flip the script. You know, and when you have a direction and you have order, and let's face it, you know, now that I'm more involved and I go, you know, I go to the meetings in Orange County Democrats, and I see them so organized and you know, so excited about it. And it's a different story, you know, in Osceola County, unfortunately. I've been trying to get more involved with the party for the last 3 years, and every time I look around, you know, no, there isn't really much of organization. It's restructuring. There isn't anything going on. You know, so we are doing that to ourselves. You know, we need real leadership. We need a mission. We need to have vision, you know, and have a plan,
right? Because
that's what the other party has,
mm-hmm.
You know. And to your point, you know, with everything that's going on in Osceola, Osceola is a battleground. Just because, I mean, you look at Kissimmee, for example. The city of Kissimmee is 50% Puerto Rican. You know, where is all my people?
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you know, the national media look at. Look, there's a big Puerto Rican population, a big Hispanic population, you know, and you know, it should be a blue state, you know, because that's what everybody assumed, that all Hispanics are Democrats. Mm-hmm. You know, they will be surprised as much as I was, you know, with the last few years that I've been with the chamber. You know, I deal with a lot of business owners that identify themselves as Republican. Mm-hmm. Okay, but now, you know, things are changing because we see the division that this extreme rhetoric is causing. You know, this is very similar to what is happening in Puerto Rican politics. Mm-hmm. With the party in charge. And, you know, we have a governor there that is, her and her husband are MAGA. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, and we're seeing how that, you know, is in a path of destruction of a lot of environmental rights and people rights in Puerto Rico, with all these mega projects by billionaires, and how they're taking basically a piece of what's happening in the United States and applying it there to try to change laws that allow these type of things. Mm-hmm. You know, and in Osceola, you know, unfortunately, you know, we have, you know, this, you know, like you say, you know, this the good old boy network.
Yeah.
That just feels like, you know, we we can do whatever we can. And there's a lot of questions about how elections go, in Osceola in certain areas that are supposed to be more tilted towards Hispanics. But there's a reality, and it's that we need to get our people out to vote.
Yeah.
And the way we get our people to vote is talking with the real issues that are affecting them.
Yeah.
It's just like talking to a business owner. They want to know about their bottom line, what is affecting their pockets. That's why we need to talk to people. Look, how much are you paying for groceries? Can you afford as much as you were able to buy 4 years ago? How is your rent affecting you?
And the thing that makes I could cry about it because I'm so upset. We have such opportunity as Democrats to speak to the hearts of people right now. Imagine you have a child who's in school, who's Hispanic or Haitian. Your friends are starting to not come to school. That's trauma. Yeah. Those kids are coming home crying. Those kids can't focus and keep their grades up. All the other problems of, the war in Iran is causing more people to use pantry assistance than even during COVID right now. Yes. But I'm talking about the real world circumstances in Osceola that could be an easy way for Democrats to come in and say, I hear you. And I live in Orange. One of the things that breaks my heart is how quiet a lot of the Democrats who have been in office for years and years and years have been. How the pain that I know people in our community are feeling and are just told go to work and be quiet and just bring in a paycheck. If we as Democrats don't at least do something, speak on every podcast, on every article, and every publication, do every interview, do every press conference, be in the streets, hold rallies, and it doesn't even need to be about Democrats. It just needs to be showing up and making people see that you feel how they feel in this moment. And so many of our Democrats, this is why I'm scared for you running as a true Democrat, because the Republicans are burned by the Republicans, but they're looking around and they're seeing no momentum from the Democrats.
Yes.
What is it in your policies that you think you can restore that trust?
Well, everybody knows, what's trending, affordability, but it goes more than affordability and having affordable housing, and being able to provide. I was part of the Osceola Housing Finance Authority for the last for 4 years. Mm-hmm. And, it's just like you say, the same people have been running that commission for over 40 years. Mm-hmm. And all we did was approve, projects to be developed. But there is so much more that I felt, we can do. When I went to the conference in San Agustin a couple of years ago, there's other housing finance authorities that, were not only providing affordable rentals, but also doing collaborations with Habitat for Humanity, for example, to provide affordable home ownership, mm-hmm. For families to have a legacy, something that they can pass on. We need to really step out of our comfort zone. And I think that is one of the issues with a lot of people who've been in power for a long time, that they are in a zone where they feel comfortable and they haven't had to really fight as much to be where they are. But then we have another side where people are just scared. But they're scared because there isn't anyone, who can rally the troops, mm-hmm. so to speak. Mm-hmm. Or an organization that organizes, that really reaches out, that can tell them, okay, let's bring all these candidates and let's do a massive call to action. That's something that when I was growing up, in Wisconsin as a student, I think we take things for granted here. When I was in Wisconsin, we worked together, Hispanics with African Americans, with the Hmong Asian population, and we were still a minority, but we had to fight 10 times as hard. Mm-hmm. Here, I call this Disneyland for Hispanics. Mm-hmm. I mean, you go to Kissimmee, anywhere in Osceola County, or here in Orange County, you go to the Gateway District. I mean, you don't have to speak English. Mm-hmm. On the contrary, you might have to. Does anyone here speak English? If you don't speak Spanish, mm-hmm. because everybody speaks Spanish, and I think everybody, especially the Hispanic population, feels very comfortable because they feel embraced with how Hispanic this area is, but at the same time, they are not too familiar with the politics here. Now they are really seeing what this administration is doing, and it is very easy to be afraid. Especially if you are an immigrant, I have seen it firsthand. Kids that my youngest daughter's ex-boyfriend, Venezuelan, his uncle got picked up by ICE 2 blocks away from his business. It took him a week to find out where he was. Now he's out of school. He's getting homeschooled. So it's a domino effect. You see a lot of people not going to work. When I was in the chamber, I received emails from the hiring, the human resources department for Rosen hotels. People weren't showing up to work. Mm-hmm. So for the Hispanic population is twofold, but I feel if we had the leadership, that can really give them the message, look, I got your back, you don't got to be afraid. And there are organizations and there are people who are willing to do it. I'm a rookie on this, but I told the people that I talk to, let's do something, let's mobilize, because if we don't speak up, we're never going to be heard. We're not going to make a difference. We cannot just let the days go by, and at least when you speak up, people pay attention. Mm-hmm. When we organize and people see numbers, which we have, people will pay attention.
Yeah.
But it has to matter. We got to have a purpose. We got to have a plan of action. And if we work together with as many organizations that we have in the area, I think we can start something beautiful towards a better Central Florida. Mm-hmm. And more people being involved.
What would be really beautiful? Having a project 2026 or 2028 that's positive, born out of Florida.
Yes.
The front lines of some of the most racist, volatile, and disgusting policies be the home place of an agenda that's real, that speaks to people, that we can bring to the front doors of a Democrat or a Republican with pride. Because if we just, first of all, have establishment Democrats that don't even react when, I have a candidate I'm working with right now. She works at an elementary school. 30 kids in one day didn't have parents come and pick them up.
Wow.
And that was back when they were doing those massive raids in Orlando. Operation Tidal Wave, or whatever cute little name that the Republicans like to name their exploitative programs. Those are lives that they're impacting and children's destinies that they're impacting. And I'd like to see Democrats come with a strong plan. Obviously, getting in there already is an awesome accomplishment because you will toe the line against that supermajority, which we need so desperately.
Yes.
But then what policies are you bringing to the doors to say there's hope and then there's also aspirations?
Yeah, That's a great question, and obviously, people need to be secured. So affordability is very important. We have in Florida a lot of issues for many years with insurance that is getting a little bit better as we're going, but we need to have opportunities for people to thrive. In our region, we depend a lot on jobs that are in the hospitality industry, which are not high-paying jobs. We need to have programs and education that incentivize kids to look at trades. I mean, look at all the development that we are having in the region. When you work on a trade and you are in that industry, you can make a decent living. We need to look for jobs that are well-paying jobs that can provide for a family. You cannot have 3, 4, 5 people in one household working 2 jobs in order to be able to survive. Not even to live or thrive, but just to survive. So we need to take a good look at the educational system, provides more avenues for kids to be more productive and to go in areas and industries that are booming, that need the labor and that can provide a good living. But also, we need to help the backbone of this economy, which is the small business community. I've been working with small businesses for the last 7, 8 years, helping them, helping somebody with an idea, get that idea develop, help them grow, scale up, look for real opportunities. But businesses suffer. I'm a small business owner, and I struggle from time to time, to make things ends meet. It's really not that easy being a small business owner, especially when you got things like the commercial rental tax, makes your commercial rents a lot higher than you will like. That prevents small businesses from hiring more individuals. But we also need to hold the big corporations accountable and also be part of the solution. Me as a small business owner, I am willing to pay someone $15 an hour, because otherwise nobody's going to come to work. Now the minimum wage is $14 an hour. That's $1 more. And I know a lot of small businesses that pay over $15 an hour. But you go to these big corporations that are really big, and they're not paying their employees as much as they should. So we need to create that. We need to create we need to have the right the expansion of the Medicaid and Medicare for the elderly. We need to provide for that population, because we have a lot of people who are suffering, and we have a lot of people here who are retirees, who are in Social Security, and I've seen it, with my own eyes, when how they struggle with 2 Social Security checks, maybe a pension, but what happens when one of them passes away?
Yeah.
I had a family in Kissimmee, Aurea, 73 years old. Her husband passed away. And she had to move. She couldn't afford the rent. She was in an affordable housing unit, and she had to move. Luckily, she had family here. But what happens to those who their loved ones are far away?
Yeah.
So we need to look at the different populations that we have. And my plan is to look at the laws that are already existing. What can we change? What can we do? Where can we do better? How can we make this thriving economy in Florida work for everybody? How can we have living wages? I had meetings with some people, the SIEU union, and to me it was tough to hear that they had members of their union who live in their cars. come on, do you think the unions, when I moved to the United States, the unions were the backbone to the middle class. They were responsible to creating a thriving middle class. And, here in Florida, we are putting every roadblock in their way for unions not to work and have the right to fight for living wages. So there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, we've been under Republican administrations for a very long time, and it's not going to be easy to change everything that has been going on. But we need to start with what is affecting the most vulnerable.
And I think there's so much opportunity because Republicans are enacting their agenda in such a careless, stupid way. You want to remove giant swaths of the workforce, whether that's construction or farming or hospitality. And all of these other ramifications are happening, from school closures to, jobs not being able to retain staff, and huge gaps in our economy. It would have been smarter to do those harmful policies, not that I advocate for them, but have a fast track into trade programs. If they really cared about long-term benefits and to retain power and popularity, I mean, even Hitler delivered on some economic and different types of job opportunities at the time when he was using the levers of his power to murder people to get it to be popular in the public eye. And yet this administration in this state and DeSantis's regime is very much doing things in a very careless way for short-term gains for their own pockets.
Yes.
And in doing that, they're exposing their own truths, like the deficits that were created from alligator Alcatraz. And they look clumsy and idiotic along the way. And so it's our opportunity to come in with these types of policies and say the amount of money that we put into something like alligator Alcatraz could have easily created funding opportunities for kids to be able to be fast-tracked into a trade program to create more jobs.
Yes.
And I think that's the type of thing that when you're at the doors talking to a Republican, I hope their ears perk up and they get excited, because aren't they tired of voting for someone who's just going to hurt someone else? Don't they want something for themselves and their kids and their future?
They're waking up. I see it, and that gives me hope, because people are, when you feel it, and we saw that at the top, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she was the number one advocate and defender of this president. And when she saw that her family was being hurt by the policies, she spoke up. And what did she get in return? And I think that's, if it can happen in the top, what about every one of us?
Exactly.
What about, those individuals who voted for this administration and had family, friends deported, disenfranchised, can't afford health care. I don't have health care insurance. I can afford it. It's unbelievable. But if it happens to people who are in power, what about the common Floridian?
Right.
And that's, I think, is what's really is waking up their base to say, look, this is not what we signed up for. We need someone who is really in touch. And we saw that from the president himself when he said that he didn't care about the financial situation of Americans. Well, he's not feeling, the hurt in his pockets when he goes to the grocery store. And I'm sure he doesn't go to the grocery store,
Right. Well, I'm curious, do people in your district understand the difference between someone who will just vote right and someone who will actually fight for them? Because, especially there's a large concentration of Puerto Ricans in the area. They might brush off some racist comments, but My uncle works for a major utility in South Florida, and he said anytime a hurricane ever hits any of the Caribbean, usually there's a call to mobilize.
Yes.
And they have the trucks ready. I mean, he's really high up, and he never got a call from the last few hurricanes that passed through Puerto Rico and Jamaica. I mean, we had Hurricane Dorian that was a category 6, 7 that cut through Jamaica.
I think it was 5.
I mean, it was like, but they don't even have a category 7 or 6.
Yeah, or 6.
But it was higher than even what they've ever seen. It was like 280 miles per hour. They never got a call to really mobilize their resources, right? And when things like that happen, under the Trump administration and under Biden, it was different. But when things like that happen, do Puerto Ricans and our Hispanic population, do they not feel it? Do they not see it? Because just because you're in a better space being in Orlando and in Central Florida, you know, that's your home. You probably still have family there.
Oh, yeah.
Like my father, I always am wondering why you feel like you need to close the door behind you when it comes to the American dream. I wish that everyone, regardless of political party, instead approached politics like we could have it all.
Yeah.
We could have it all. If Trump could make $3 billion in office just this year alone, we can have it all for everyone, right?
I mean, come on. We are the most powerful economy in the world. And you look at other countries who have, I mean, I went to Singapore, about probably more than 10 years ago, 15 years ago. How is it that they have 80% of the people live in, it's just like over 60% has subsidized housing. Mm-hmm. The median income is $80,000. I mean, we're talking about an island that is 27 miles by 35, one of the second most important ports in the world, but it's achievable. You look at Denmark, you look at other countries in Europe, that are making things work, where they have a lot of guardrails for their public servants, and I hate when people call me a politician because I am not. I've always been a public servant, and that's what I like to be called. This is my first run also. So, but they got guardrails for people to have a good living, but are not doing that at the expense of the people.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a straight, wide open corruption. That's what we're saying.
For just like a few friends.
Yes.
And not even for like the majority of the businesses.
For criminals, look at the 1.8 billion of money. Thank God, a judge blocked it, but is that going to stay on forever? Because that gives access to these traitors from January 6th.
Yeah.
The real domestic terrorists. I'm sorry, but if you're trying to break into the Capitol when our legislatures are there, that to me that amounts to treason.
Absolutely. And in the state of Florida in particular, it's been not just the battleground and the trial area for Project 2025 and bad policies, but also the corruption. It's very pay to play here. One thing that might be a culture shock to you when you go up to Tallahassee is how many backroom whining and dining people, the lobbyists, the army of lobbyists that go up there, they're going to take you out to dinner. They're going to hand you a check, right? Literally to get a meeting, to give you a policy that they want you to file. And that's just the way things have been done for so long, for Democrats and Republicans, majority Republicans. We do have great Democrats that are trying to hold the line, that are trying to even put their bodies on the line, doing sit-ins and protests. But Florida has a track record of being one of the most corrupt states in the world, not just in the country. And I think your race is kind of the epicenter of that, because it is a flippable area.
Yes.
If you come with a strong message and make voting exciting again.
Yes.
Especially to our Hispanic population out there, you can flip that district no problem.
I agree. And I think we need to all get on board. And how we do that, volunteering. That's one of the things that I've seen with a lot of the campaigns that are going on are lacking volunteers, and a lot of people that I know have volunteered to do canvassing and phone banks and things of the such in the past, at least in the Hispanic side, they're scared. They're not willing to go out there and, run the chance that they might get pulled over by ICE just because they're knocking on doors, or somebody will call them, call ICE and on them. But we need people to step up and volunteer their time. We need people to open their pockets. This is an investment. This is people need to see this as, if we have someone in our corner, what are you willing to do for someone to be able to be in a position to help you?
Yeah.
And support those individuals. But we gotta have the right message. We gotta have the right approach. People that I've been talking to are tired of politicians. They're tired of people making promises to put speed bumps in their streets and not coming through, of seeing people every 4 years and never seeing them again. To people reaching out to their elected officials that told them, call me when you need anything, and they don't respond. That's a lot of the messages that I have in the last couple of months from individuals in Osceola County. And, once again, that's why I said, look, I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant. I'm taking notes, but, we got to have integrity. We got to be able to have people trust us. Forget about, the parties and the platforms. Be an individual who can be trusted. And if we are genuine and we can accept that, look, it's not just, we're part of this community. I'm going through the same problems and issues and pressures that my future constituents are going through.
Right.
That my neighbors are going through. So, we have to have that empathy and really reach out to our neighbors, see, what they need and be open and be brave, because again, politics have been in the last few years have been very divisive, violent at times, but we need to be brave, because if we don't stand up for ourselves, who can we trust to do that for us?
Right. Well, I always ask everyone this question on the podcast. You're working, you're a business owner, you're knocking on doors, you're campaigning. What do you do to replenish yourself spiritually, to get up and take on another day? I know one of the reasons that we didn't have this podcast, because the time, to me, Sundays are sacred. It's just for my family and I to go and congregate, and it's non-negotiable for me. So I appreciate you having me later during the day. But every day, I have the Bible app in my phone, and every day I take that time to read a verse, to go, I read a Bible plan, to listen to a preaching, or just to pray or be thankful, and go outside and enjoy the beautiful creation that we live in, and that always gives me hope. Because we have a being more powerful than anything else that's going on in the world. That if He put us here, we each have a purpose, and that purpose involves being around others and building a community. And
treating everybody like we like to be treated. And that's why in my page, you'll find that one of the principles that I'm running on as a Christian is to love thy neighbor, because, without love, we're lost. And, it sounds cliche, everybody say it, but, when you look for the best in people and you learn to love them with their imperfections, we can make a better world. And I think I was put here and brought to Florida for a purpose. I love, this state. I love the opportunities that we have. But I think if we all get together and we want to really live out the American dream, we need to start working as one, have a plan and just be in touch with the higher being and with each other. Mm-hmm. And it's all about, being love and knowing that, you're not alone.
How do you feel about Trump not being able to really articulate a single verse in the Bible, but being looked at as like,
oh my God,
sent from God?
No,
I get really frustrated when religion is co-opted into either fear-mongering or political persuasion in order to get a demographic of people to buy into a person. Because, I grew up around church as well, and it was like home. It was like family. It wasn't a way to manipulate people. Correct. And yet in politics, especially since Democrats are made to look like they're anti-religious, mm-hmm. It's really interesting because like James Tellerico, who's running in Texas, brings up wanting to actually take religion out of politics and take religion out of schools to save the divinity and the clarity of religion, because it's been so co-opted into the corrupt side of politics. And Trump not being able to say a single Bible verse is a perfect example of that.
Oh my God, the guy is blasphemous. I mean, that picture of depicting him as Jesus and then trying to say that's the Red Cross nurse. Come on. I mean,
I'm glad that backfired poorly among his base, but
OMG, it's like, and what's worse is that religious leaders try to justify him, and that's the worst of it, but I've seen changes in the church too, because they are seeing what is being done openly, the killing of innocent individuals, not only in Gaza, but here, during those protests in Minneapolis. 2 American citizens lost their lives just because they were trying to step up for mm-hmm. immigrants. That's biblical. So I think people are starting to see that, and is just think about this. In every situation, when you look at what this administration is doing, what will Jesus do?
Right?
Is that what the scripture reads? And James Tallarico, I follow him, and he's such a well articulated Christian, and his responses are so well framed, that I think people can really see more than just the message when somebody is real,
right?
And that's what I want people to know. Look, I'm just another Floridian, another Floricua, and I want to do good in this state. I want my kids to grow up and have great opportunities, but I also want my neighbors to thrive. I want people to feel welcome in this state. I want people to know that there is real opportunity, not just for some, but for all.
Right.
And I think waking up and having guiding my date from the beginning, that's what gave me the motor to continue, because I know that I'm I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, in closing, tell us how people can get involved with your campaign, how they can volunteer, maybe donate.
Yes. Hey, Jorge Figueroa for Florida.com. Jorge Figueroa for Florida.com. You can go in there. You can follow me in all social media platforms. If you go to my website, my phone number is there. If you have any questions, you want to talk to me directly, I'm an open book.
We have a caller now. Let's see if we have a caller now.
Yeah, and
we're not live.
I have a Wisconsin number. Oh, I was ready. I got a Wisconsin number. There's too many numbers there. And what's fun about that is as I'm making all these campaign calls and I'm reconnecting with a lot of my friends from college in Wisconsin. They're very supportive, and even though I'm not there. And that's. Again, that brings me joy and gives me hope because I didn't know this was this hard. I mean, this is it's a lot of sacrifice that you do with family and time, but it's also rewarding when you listen to the people and you receive that support and that backing. Mm-hmm. And I just want to do the best job that I can to represent every single Floridian, because it's not just those who support me, it's everybody.
Right.
Because you just got to love people.
Yeah.
And if you're here and you're blessed, be a blessing to others.
Amen. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lee. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. And I'm so excited to see how you can help transform the hearts of people in one of the most important counties in the state. So the roots that you're setting through your campaign might be the very roots that we can not only flip that district, but hopefully retain it and build on it for 2028. And so it's very exciting. And so thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And everybody, let's get excited. It's a lot of negative things happening in this world, but, we got to be thankful that we have an opportunity to live our dreams, even when you're struggling. And this is just going to make us stronger. Just be part of the struggle and be part of something special that's going to happen here in Florida.
Thank you all so much. We appreciate you. And thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you heard today, please comment, subscribe, and share. And visit organizingtovictory.com so that you can learn more about all the ways that we're going to be organizing this year. It is the most important election year of our lives. I know you hear that all the time, but we here at Organizing to Victory hope to not just talk about the issues, but to organize around the issues. So please share, subscribe, and follow us. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.